Welcome to Master Your Posture. I'm Dr. Paula Moore, and I really appreciate you joining me here today. You're obviously serious about your posture and health. As a little bonus, later on I'm going to share everything you need to set up the perfect home posture zone, as well as an amazing exercise for decompressing your entire body. If you want a copy of that information, please stick around until the very end and I'll tell you how to get it. Today's training is going to be roughly 40 minutes. Please remember to stick around until the very end of our time together so you can grab those free gifts. Now, you might be that person who's already tried correcting your posture on your own, and it hasn't been working for you. I'm guessing you've had that awful feeling that maybe you're the only person that can't be helped. You've almost given up. And if that's you, I'm really glad that you're here. There's a lot of fear when it comes to our health and well-being. Fear of chronic pain, fear of looking and feeling unattractive in our bodies, the fear of popping pills and that no one can help us, and perhaps the biggest fear of all is losing control of our health and well-being as we get older. My goal for you is that this online training will fill in the gaps and help you be the best version of yourself. This is going to be about easy to implement, scientific best practice strategies so that you can transform your posture and take charge of your life. Really. Right now, you're probably in one of three places. You have pain and you've had it for a long time and you don't really know what's wrong and no one's been able to help you. Or you've struggled with your posture for years. You don't like how you look, and maybe people have even commented on your appearance. Finally, you might be that person who's always been proactive about your health care. You're determined not to medicate, and your biggest desire is to feel in charge of your own health and well-being. You know, I was struggling too. In my late 20s, I was working for the sports clubs of Canada and suffering daily headaches and chronic low back pain. One day on my lunch break, I was walking down the streets in Toronto and I noticed a chiropractic clinic. Walked in. You know, I was so tired of taking aspirin every day for my headaches. I knew I was masking the symptoms, but I was desperate to find out the cause of my pain. This lovely man assessed me and adjusted my spine. In fact, I remember walking in with a headache and leaving without one. That was life-changing for me, and as a result, I decided to return to university a second time to study chiropractic. I promise this training is worth your time. By the end of this webinar, you'll have a whole new understanding of the simple steps you can take to unleash the incredible power of mastering your posture and going back to the vitality and health you experienced in the past when you just naturally knew how to move and position your body. My promise to you is that by the end of this training, you'll have 7 proven strategies to improve your posture and change your life. All you need to do is jump in. And don't forget to stick around until the end for some cool freebies. So my name is Dr. Paula Moore. My students call me Posture Doctor. I'm the founder of PostureVideos.com, best-selling author of The Posture Doctor, internationally trained chiropractor with a fellowship in the physics of posture, and I've been featured on BBC, Women's Hour, Breakfast TV, and dozens of popular health magazines. And I've been helping people correct their posture for over 20 years. Many years ago now, I began creating videos on how to correct posture, and I never imagined those videos would create such an online buzz with millions of views and thousands of enrolled students in 93 countries around the world. So, are you ready? Here's why this training is so important. I've helped thousands of people improve their posture. The Master Your Posture strategies really aren't being taught because for the most part, the industry experts are using the wrong approach. The biggest mistake I see these trainers and instructors make is they use a generic approach to correct a structural problem. So a generic approach focuses mainly on pain and symptoms and isolated activities like how to sit. But when the treatment or class is over, the symptoms and bad posture return because the underlying cause hasn't been addressed, the structural alignment of our spine. The most important reason for you to stay tuned to the end of this training is to learn how to correct your posture by doing the one thing we did as children but no longer do as adults. I think you'll find it pretty awesome. The elements that get left out of most posture trainings are the reason your posture hasn't improved. They're the things you absolutely need to know and practice, but you might never have come across them before. If you're like most people, you're already worried it won't work for you. I get it. But what you're about to learn are the exact strategies I've personally used to master my posture, and that's pretty amazing considering I have an anatomically short leg, a curvature in my spine, a rigid bunion in my big toe, and disc degeneration in my lower back. If these 7 strategies worked on someone like me, they'll absolutely help you. Are you ready to get started? This isn't rocket science, but it's amazing how often this first strategy is missed. Strategy number 1, choose the best training for your posture. Seems kind of obvious, right? And yet the biggest mistake I see health professionals, trainers, and instructors make is they use a generic approach to correct a structural problem. And as I said, that approach focuses mainly on pain and symptoms and isolated activities. But when the treatment or class ends, those symptoms and bad postures return because the cause hasn't been addressed, the structural alignment of your spine. And by all means, if you want to use a different approach other than my Master Your Posture training, please do, and apply these 7 strategies to get some great results. There are a number of programs out there. Unfortunately, most of them are taught by trainers and instructors with no medical training. People use posture training to get rid of their aches and pains, to feel more attractive and upright, and to take back control of their health and well-being, so they age well. For these reasons, we need to choose our training carefully. Here's a little checklist of the strategies I believe are essential for all posture training programs out there. Specific daily rituals, medical qualifications of the teacher, clinical experience in radiology, and a greater focus on the inside of the body, your spinal alignment, than on the outside appearance. And we'll talk much more about this today. Here's a detailed list of what your training should include. So, daily rituals and practices, for example, the best time of day to do your training. Ergonomic protocols for sitting, sleeping, standing, and driving. Your training should be based on peer-reviewed medical research and taught by a qualified university instructor who has clinical experience in radiology. That means taking, measuring, and interpreting spinal x-rays. Your training ideally should provide an all-in-one package, so you're not jumping from one website to the next or from one video to the next trying to build your own training. A one-off payment, so you can pay and then not think about the money again. And it should have objective outcomes, real procedures built right into the curriculum to measure your progress, and definitely a guarantee. Someone willing to stand behind their training and say, hey, if this isn't for you, that's cool. Here's all your money back. That's the kind of training you should expect. Master Your Posture is an online course that does everything on that list and more. I've developed this training because there just wasn't a reliable science-based program that I could find out there anywhere. In case you're wondering just how important it is for your training to be based on the latest research, we just need to scan some of the current research in posture. This study in JMPT found an association between leg length efficiency, or leg length difference, and lumbar and disc degeneration. Remember I told you I have a short leg, spinal curvature, and degenerative discs? Well, I wouldn't know how to create a truly effective training program based on research and science if I didn't have years of clinical experience in radiology. This was a good-sized study of over 1,300 participants. Those who had slouched or hyperkyphotic appearance had a 1.44 greater rate of death. So that means if your risk factor for death was, say, 20% of the population who had the same health history as you within maybe the next 10 years, that risk would jump to 28.8% if you had hyperkyphotic or slumped posture. That's significant. Look who's teaching your posture training. If they don't have the appropriate qualifications, that program might not get you the results you need. Of course, medical qualifications and clinical experience isn't a guarantee, but it's a darn good start. Choose the best training for your posture. That's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2, start each morning with a walk. I'm a huge fan of the health benefits of a daily walk, and I do it every day. I think just about everyone who's able should do more of it. Many of the most accomplished and creative people throughout history have found walking to be an essential part of their daily routines and key to their success. One of history's greatest minds, Aristotle, famous Greek philosopher, conducted his lectures while walking the grounds of his school in Athens. His followers quite literally followed him as he walked. Author Charles Dickens, my grandfather's favorite writer, used to write from 9 till 2 in the afternoon, and then he'd go for a 20 to 30 mile walk. I'm not recommending that. Famous composer Beethoven, I grew up with his music. He would work while walking and carried a pen and sheets of music paper in case inspiration struck, which it often did. And a poet with the most fitting surname ever, William Wordsworth, apparently walked nearly 175,000 miles throughout his life. There's so much evidence to support the benefits of daily walking. This study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology linked outdoor walking with an 81% increase in creative thinking. While walking on a treadmill also increased mood and creativity, it wasn't nearly as much as walking outdoors. I've got some protocols that I stick to when it comes to walking. So get out the door by 7:30 at the latest. Now I know this is hard if you've got kids. Maybe leave them in bed or drag them along with you if you have to. Make your walking off-piste. In other words, walk on soft surfaces, not the concrete. When we walk, something has to give, and it's definitely not going to be the hard pavement. It's going to be our ankle, knees, or hip joints. Walking off-piste on soft, uneven terrain improves our balance, proprioception, and posture. The walk should last at least 20 minutes, but no longer than 60. We want to kickstart our body movement and metabolism first thing in the morning, but we still have things to get done. So 60 minutes is kind of a good max. Ideally, create 3 routes for yourself. This morning I did my 40-minute route. It takes me through a nice forest trail, into a neighborhood, past some tennis courts, along the waterfront and over a bridge where I often see a blue heron or a beaver. Walking, by the way, is a cell phone-free zone. Walking isn't for multitasking or texting or podcasting. Walking is used to mobilize our body, kickstart our metabolism, and clear our heads. Strategy number 3, create a posture training zone. Do you think you'd be more likely to exercise if you created a dedicated space free of clutter and it had everything you needed in it? Absolutely. You'll exercise if you have a dedicated space in your home that's convenient and clutter-free. This is a picture of my own posture zone. It doubles as my film studio. And as you can see, I've used interlocking foam exercise mats. They're 2 feet by 2 feet, and I've got 9 of them. It gives me a workout space of 6 foot by 6 foot. That's really all you need. So what you need, foam mats, as we said, a stool or a chair for some of the seated exercises. Small towel is useful for some of the neck exercises. Foam roller, I've got a knobbly one here that's good for muscle knots. There's some optional items as well. You can see I've got a gray electric massager. I like to warm up the muscles before I begin. And I've got a couple of curve correctors sitting on the stool. So a yoga mat to put on top of the foam mats on the floor. One large foam roller. These are great for deep stretches of the chest. Some optional items. I've got a balance board here I stole from my nephew in orange and blue there. Resistance bands, they're great for strength training. And proprio socks that I wear on my feet when I do my exercises. And if you stay tuned to the end of the webinar, I'll tell you where you can get all of these tools. Strategy 4, have some spinal x-rays taken. An MRI is best for imaging the soft tissue and fluids in your body, but an x-ray is better for visualizing bone. So we use MRI to examine and diagnose disorders such as stroke, aneurysm, tumors, and conditions like MS. But X-rays are better for imaging bone spurs from arthritis, fractures, spinal alignment, altered spine curves like a reverse neck curve, or scoliosis, and also osteoporosis, bone thinning. So X-rays help you diagnose what you need to do to correct your posture. Let me tell you a little story. I'm going to teach you a new way of looking at an old problem. The age-old problem is poor posture. Recently, I ran an online quiz called How Much Do You Actually Know About Posture? This was one of the questions I asked. Which would give you the most information about your posture? A photo, B, X-ray, C, MRI. Which would you choose? Here's what people said. Almost 60% thought a picture of their outer appearance would give the most information about their posture. In fact, the correct answer is B, an X-ray. See, most people try to correct their posture from the outside, and that's not their fault, because that's how most instructors or trainers are teaching posture. But when we focus on our outer appearance, what we're actually doing is looking at the symptom of a much deeper problem, the structural alignment of the spine. And we can only ever really understand what's going on the outside if we address the inside. That's why having an X-ray is so important. If you brought your car in to be repaired, and the mechanic looked at your car from the outside and said, sounds like your carburetor, without even looking under the hood, you wouldn't feel very confident with the advice being given, would you? That's why I'm not a huge fan of techniques or methods taught in studios or gyms or online by an instructor or trainer with no clinical experience. So they've never taken, measured, or diagnosed a spinal alignment or a spine condition on an X-ray. So I certainly wouldn't expect them to fully understand my posture. I'd be very unsure of the results. Have spinal X-rays taken is strategy number 4. And by the way, if your doctor's hesitant to refer you for X-rays, go to your local chiropractor. The added benefit is that they know how to position you to get the most accurate analysis of your standing posture. Strategy number 5, decompress your body. We spend so much time every day slouched over our computers and mobile devices with flexed and compressed spines, and our posture is paying the price. So many hours of our day are spent looking down and forward, texting, reading, computers, doing dishes, cooking, eating, sitting, watching TV. All this forward bending is hazardous to our inner spinal alignment and outer posture appearance. This ongoing flexion or forward bending takes its toll on our spinal discs and leads to degeneration and unattractive slouching, sluggish bowels, reduced vital lung capacity, brain fog, and inability to concentrate. We can minimize the harmful effects of forward bending by spending time decompressing our bodies every day. This allows our rounding shoulders to open up, our locked hips to release, the head to drop back into alignment, and an increased ability to expand our chest and increase our vital lung capacity, which provides a greater ability to focus and concentrate and removes the muzzy head feeling of brain fog. What's not to love about this exercise? Let's take a look at it in action. To begin this stretch, you're going to sit on top of a fitness ball, walk your feet away from the ball until the thorax comes to rest on the curve of the ball. Push through the thighs, support your head, and allow the chest to open up, and hold position 1 for 60 seconds. Many of you won't progress beyond this point. That's completely normal. If you're able to, position 2 allows the head to rest on the ball and opens up the chest even further. Hold for 60 seconds. To come out of the stretch, support your head, push on the ball, and walk yourself back to neutral. If after several days you manage position 1 and 2, return to position 2
Push through the thighs and allow the full body to extend and hold for a further 60 seconds. And over the weeks, you can work up towards 5 minutes. To come out of the stretch, support your head to neutral, walk back down, support the ball, push yourself up, and walk back to neutral. Great stretch.
Strategy number 6, learn the planes of your body. In order to improve your posture permanently, so you get rid of pain, stand taller, feel more attractive, and age better than your parents did, then you need to address the underlying structure of your body and restore the mobility in the spine that you had as a child. In order to do this successfully, we need to understand how the spine actually moves, because visualizing those spinal movements helps us get better results faster. Here's what you need to know. When you move your spine on the inside of your body, you reset the posture on the outside. Nice. Let's look at the anatomical position. Every movement in the body is described starting from the anatomical position. Just as maps are normally oriented with north at the top, there's also a standard body map which we call the anatomical position. I think if we truly want to understand our body and improve our posture, it's helpful to have a basic understanding of a few new terms. So the anatomical position then is that of the human body, standing upright. Arms are at the side, with the palms facing up. And the feet should be shoulder width apart, the toes are pointing forward. The anatomical position is always the starting point of every movement we describe in the body. Now next I'm going to introduce all the different body planes. A plane is an imaginary two-dimensional surface that passes through the body. There are 3 planes of movement we talk about in the human body. The first plane is called the sagittal plane, and it comes down vertically and divides the body into left and right. Movements in this plane consist of bending forward and backwards. We can talk about movement of the head and neck relative to the thorax in the sagittal plane. And it looks like this. Forward bending, backward extension. Bending forward, and bending or extending backward. We can talk about movement of the thorax relative to the pelvis in the sagittal plane. It too moves into flexion and extension, but it's stiffer because there's a lot of ribs. Remember to visualize what the spine is doing underneath. We can also talk about movement of the pelvis relative to the feet in the sagittal plane. Can you think of what that might look like? It's a sort of tipping motion if you think about a bucket full of water. The bucket spills the water as it goes forward and holds the water as it tips back. Again, visualize the spine. Tipping back, tipping the bucket forward. The second plane of movement in the body is the coronal plane. Corona is a beer, but it's also Latin for crown. The coronal plane divides the body into front and back. Now, movements in this plane include side bending. Now, if we're moving the head and neck in the coronal plane, it looks a bit like this. Left and right bending. We can also move the thorax in the coronal plane relative to the pelvis. And it looks like this. Now I'm doing it in the standing position. You can also do it seated. And remember to focus, visualize what's happening in the spine. You'll get better results and faster results. See that spine, the thorax, the blue vertebra. And the pelvis can also move in the coronal plane relative to the feet. Can you think what that might look like? There's the plane. And what would the pelvis be doing? Well, it looks a little bit like a hip hike. Like this. You can imagine we don't do these movements very often as adults. Oops, nice phone, Paula. Movements in the coronal plane. The last plane of movement is called the transverse plane, and it divides the body into top and bottom. Motions of rotation or twist occur in this plane. If we want to move the head and neck in the transverse plane, think about a slice about here. That movement looks like a turn or a rotation to the right and the left, relative to the thorax. If we'd like to move the thorax relative to the pelvis, we can do that also in the transverse plane. There's the plane. It's helpful to do this one seated because you can isolate the pelvis, keeping it stationary. And we move through the plane by rotating or twisting side to side. And we can move the pelvis relative to the feet in the transverse plane. There's the plane, and it looks a little bit like the twist, the dance. Back and forth, a really great way to unlock the lower spine. Movements in the transverse plane. If you truly desire to master your posture, you must learn to move effectively in each plane of our body and restore the lost movement patterns from our childhood. Strategy number 7, make a commitment. If you didn't have a commitment to your health on some level, you wouldn't be here. So in many ways, you've taken the hardest step. This would be a good time to ask yourself, why do I want to fix my posture? What's at stake for you? Would you like to feel more attractive in your body? Have a pain-free day or a week or month even. Increase your energy or socialize more with friends. Maybe your commitment is much bigger than that. Perhaps you want to age better than your parents did, or maybe you just want to feel happy again. What's at stake for you? We all love our reasons, don't we? Let's face it, our reasons get us off the hook. And the more convincing our reasons for not doing something, the more likely our reasons sabotage our commitments. When we honor our reasons, I don't have time, I can't afford it. It didn't work last time. I'll start later. I'm too old. I'm too lazy. I'll give up. When we honor those reasons over and above the commitments that we make for a fulfilling life, we're cheating ourselves. We make commitments, eat healthy, fix our posture, show up for work, spend time with family. And we commit to these things because they matter to us, and they matter because they make our lives happy and better. Life's always going to throw us reasons not to do something, and circumstances will sometimes be out of our control for sure. But I suggest the next time you hear yourself giving yourself a reason why you can't do the thing that you know will make your life better, that you reflect on how your life would transform if you made the commitment. One of the reasons people lose motivation with their commitments is that our reptilian brains are wired to seek quick rewards. So the piece of chocolate cake is a much faster reward than your daily posture training. The only way you'll ever transform your posture and overcome motivation meltdown is to create a daily habit. And a habit by definition is a regular practice. Because good posture isn't luck or genetics or some quick fix technique. Good posture is a lifestyle. Strategy number 7 is make a commitment to practicing your posture training for 6 months. And I guarantee if you do that, you will totally transform your posture and change your life. Next time you find yourself too tired or too busy to exercise, ask yourself this: will I honor my reasons or my commitments? What I've just shown you are the exact strategies behind a program I call Master Your Posture. It's a lifestyle, a daily practice I've personally used to correct my own posture, and I've taught thousands of online students just like you. Right now, let's recap everything you've discovered today. First, we talked about choosing the right training program, and that your training needs to be based on sound research and science. Then we learned how our body and mind benefit from a morning walk. We discussed how to create your own posture zone in your home, and I have a free download for you shortly so you can design yours. Then we talked about the need for spinal x-rays so that we can use that information about the bony structure inside our body to help us transform even our outer appearance. Then we observed an amazing technique to physically decompress our bodies. And we saw some of the ways we can move our body in 3 different planes so that we restore childhood movement patterns and visibly transform our posture. And as promised, I have 2 free gifts for you now. Gift 1 is your body decompression guide, and you could download that at posturevideos.com/free-gift1 if you want to write that down now. Your second gift is your home posture zone setup guide with everything you need to create inspiring space. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.